You're losing years of potential achievement to procrastination, as important tasks remain perpetually delayed while trivial activities consume your time. Recognizing that procrastination is not laziness or poor time management, but specific psychological patterns that can be systematically eliminated through targeted systems. Knowing that stopping procrastination forever means implementing proven frameworks that guarantee action regardless of motivation, mood, or task difficulty. Understanding that these 7 systems address root psychological causes rather than symptoms, creating permanent elimination, not temporary improvement, and watching decades pass without accomplishing what consistent action would have made inevitable, because without anti-procrastination systems, you remain trapped in perpetual delay cycle, making systematic elimination essential for realizing your full potential. This procrastination pattern is systematically destroying achievement by ensuring important high-value work never receives attention, while urgent low-value tasks create illusion of productivity, destroying your confidence by proving repeatedly that you cannot trust yourself to complete what you commit to regardless of sincere initial intentions, limiting your opportunities by creating reputation as someone who talks about goals but never executes reliably, preventing compound progress, requiring sustained consistent effort over months and years, not sporadic bursts when deadline panic creates temporary urgency, and ensuring that years pass feeling simultaneously busy and behind, because procrastination creates perpetual cycle of delay, crisis, rushed completion, and guilt, making permanent elimination through systematic approach essential. Stopping procrastination forever is not about perfect willpower or eliminating all resistance, but about implementing 7 systematic frameworks that guarantee action occurs regardless of feelings, not about never struggling with difficult tasks, but about executing anyway through systems that bypass psychological resistance, and not mysterious personality transformation, but learnable practical frameworks. This audiobook teaches how to stop procrastinating forever through 7 systematic approaches, including understanding procrastination psychology fundamentally, using 2-minute rule for immediate action, implementing time boxing for focus, creating accountability through commitment devices, breaking tasks into tiny first steps, using temptation bundling strategically, and designing environment for automatic action, making procrastination elimination systematic, reliable, and permanent. Stop delaying what matters and start guaranteed action systems. Stop guilt cycles and start systematic execution. Implement 7 anti-procrastination systems, execute consistently, and eliminate procrastination forever through unwavering commitment starting now. Chapter 1. System 1. Understand procrastination psychology to defeat it. Chapter 1 establishes foundational understanding of procrastination psychology, enabling targeted systematic elimination rather than ineffective willpower battles. The procrastination definition shows that procrastination is voluntarily delaying an intended action despite expecting the delay to make the situation worse. That this seemingly irrational behavior distinguishes genuine procrastination from strategic postponement or legitimate reprioritization based on changed circumstances. That procrastination represents fundamental emotion regulation problem, not time management problem or character flaw. And understanding that treating procrastination as simple laziness or insufficient willpower prevents effective intervention because it misidentifies the actual psychological mechanism driving the behavior. Procrastination is emotion avoidance, not laziness. Understand the psychology. Address emotions or stay trapped in delay. The emotion regulation reality reveals the core mechanism that perpetuates procrastination cycles. Procrastination serves primarily to avoid negative emotions associated with the task, including anxiety about performance quality, resentment about external obligation, overwhelm from task complexity or ambiguity, boredom from repetitive unengaging work, or fear of failure if task goes poorly, or even fear of success if task succeeds, creating new expectations and responsibilities. The immediate relief experienced from avoiding these uncomfortable emotions provides powerful negative reinforcement, making procrastination feel like effective coping strategy in the moment, even though avoided emotions return with greater intensity when looming deadlines create crises requiring rushed completion under pressure. The temporal discounting mechanism explains why procrastination feels compelling despite our intellectual knowledge that delay makes everything worse. Human brains naturally overvalue immediate rewards like the pleasure of watching videos, scrolling social media, or doing easier tasks, while systematically undervaluing delayed rewards like the satisfaction of completed project or achievement of important goal. This present bias makes the immediate pleasure of procrastination feel dramatically more compelling than the distant abstract benefit of task completion, even when we consciously know the future benefit is objectively more valuable. Temporal discounting is universal cognitive bias affecting all humans, not personal weakness or character defect, making awareness of this bias essential for implementing effective countermeasures. The perfectionism-procrastination connection demonstrates how perfectionism paradoxically prevents the perfect work it supposedly motivates. Perfectionists create unrealistically high standards that make starting feel psychologically threatening, because any initial imperfect attempt feels like failure. All or nothing thinking prevents taking imperfect action, because if work cannot be perfect, an perfectionist would rather not start at all. Fear of producing inadequate work that fails to meet impossibly high standards creates powerful avoidance motivation, making procrastination feel safer than risking visible imperfection. The perfectionist waits for perfect conditions, perfect mood, perfect preparation, creating infinite delay, because perfect conditions never arrive. The task aversion hierarchy reveals that different task characteristics trigger procrastination with varying intensity. Tasks that are boring, tedious, or repetitive create procrastination through lack of engagement. Tasks that are difficult, complex, or ambiguous create procrastination through overwhelm and uncertainty. Tasks involving potential judgment, evaluation, or visibility create procrastination through performance anxiety. Tasks requiring sustained focus and effort create procrastination when energy is low. Understanding which specific characteristics make particular task aversive enables targeted intervention, addressing the actual trigger rather than applying generic advice. The procrastination cycle perpetuation shows how initial procrastination creates conditions guaranteeing future procrastination. Delaying task increases anxiety about task, making it feel even more aversive. Growing backlog creates overwhelm, reinforcing avoidance. Approaching deadline creates panic, replacing thoughtful work with crisis management. Rush completion under deadline pressure produces lower quality work than prepared effort would have created. Poor quality outcome reinforces belief that you are not capable, strengthening future procrastination. Breaking this self-reinforcing cycle requires intervention at psychological level, not just behavioral level. The self-compassion factor reveals counterintuitive finding that harsh self-criticism for procrastinating actually increases future procrastination rather than motivating improvement. Beating yourself up for procrastinating creates additional negative emotion that triggers more emotion regulation through more procrastination. Self-compassion that acknowledges difficulty while maintaining commitment to change enables moving forward without the additional burden of shame and self-attack that paralyzes action. The present self versus future self conflict frames procrastination as failure to adequately consider future self, who will deal with consequences of present self choices. Present self wants immediate comfort and pleasure. Future self will handle the deadline crisis. Effective anti-procrastination intervention requires making future consequences feel immediate and real to present self through visualization, commitment devices, and immediate accountability, rather than allowing present self to discount future suffering as abstract problem for different person. The implementation requires honestly recognizing procrastination as emotion regulation problem, not time management problem. Identifying the specific emotions you personally avoid through procrastinating, including anxiety, overwhelm, resentment, or fear. Understanding that temporal discounting makes delayed benefits feel abstract, while immediate pleasure feels compelling. Recognizing perfectionism patterns if present and deliberately accepting imperfect action. Practicing self-compassion rather than harsh self-criticism when procrastination occurs, and treating deep psychological understanding as essential foundation for implementing systematic solutions, where surface-level willpower approaches fail because they address symptoms, not causes. Procrastination is emotion avoidance, not laziness. Understand the psychology. Address emotions or stay trapped in delay. You understand now that procrastination serves emotion regulation function, that temporal discounting is universal cognitive bias, that perfectionism prevents the perfect work it seeks, that self-compassion enables change better than criticism, and that Chapter 1 provides psychological foundation, making systematic elimination possible where misunderstanding prevented effective intervention. Chapter 2. System 2. Use 2-minute rule for immediate action. Chapter 2 uses the 2-minute rule, creating immediate action that systematically bypasses the initiation resistance barrier where most procrastination occurs. The 2-minute rule principle establishes deceptively simple framework that any task genuinely taking less than 2 minutes to complete should be executed immediately without delay, deliberation, or deferral to later time. That immediate execution for all quick tasks prevents the insidious accumulation of small tasks, creating overwhelming backlog that triggers avoidance. That the rule eliminates the decision fatigue and mental overhead of repeatedly deciding when to do small tasks. And understanding that 2-minute rule addresses the initiation resistance that is the primary barrier to action for both small tasks and the critical first steps of larger projects. 2 minutes eliminates initiation resistance. Start tiny, momentum follows. Begin now or delay forever. The immediate execution version applies to genuinely quick tasks that require 2 minutes or less of actual effort. Responding to simple email that requires brief reply. Filing single document. Making quick phone call. Washing single dish. Adding item to shopping list. Each individually trivial task becomes significant burden when delayed because small tasks accumulate rapidly, creating the perception of overwhelming workload that triggers procrastination paralysis. Executing immediately prevents accumulation, maintaining clear mental space, and preventing backlog that would otherwise grow into genuine obstacle, requiring significant effort to clear. The 2-minute starter version represents more powerful application by reducing any larger intimidating task to achievable 2-minute starting action regardless of total task size. The rule transforms from complete this quick task immediately into start this large task with just 2 minutes of effort right now. Reading entire book becomes read just first page for 2 minutes. Completing full workout becomes put on workout clothes and do 2 minutes of movement. Starting complex project becomes write single paragraph or create basic outline. The 2-minute starter exploits the psychological reality that starting is infinitely harder than continuing, making initiation the critical barrier that systematic intervention must address. The Zeigarnik effect exploitation reveals the psychological mechanism making 2-minute starters remarkably effective beyond their modest time investment. The Zeigarnik effect describes the phenomenon that incomplete tasks create psychological tension, occupying mental space and generating completion motivation that completed or never started tasks do not create. Beginning with 2-minute start deliberately activates Zeigarnik effect, creating the mental tension that makes stopping after 2 minutes feel psychologically uncomfortable, while continuing feels like relief. The 2-minute start changes task status from never started, which creates no psychological pressure, to incomplete, which creates powerful drive toward completion. The commitment flexibility balance acknowledges that 2-minute rule works precisely because it requires no commitment beyond 2 minutes. You are not committing to finish entire task or work for extended period. You commit only to 2 minutes, making the commitment feel completely achievable regardless of energy level, mood, or competing demands. This minimal commitment eliminates the resistance that larger commitments trigger. After 2 minutes, you are completely free to stop with zero guilt or sense of failure. The permission to stop paradoxically makes continuing feel easier because continuation is choice, not obligation. The momentum principle demonstrates that motion creates motivation far more reliably than motivation creates motion. We incorrectly believe we must feel motivated before starting, when actually starting creates the motivation and momentum to continue. The 2-minute start creates motion that generates motivation, energy, and engagement that were completely absent before starting. What felt impossible to begin often becomes engaging once started. The difficulty was not the task itself, but the initiation barrier that 2-minute rule systematically eliminates. The decision elimination benefit shows that 2-minute rule removes the micro decisions about when to do small tasks that consume surprising amounts of mental energy. Without the rule, each small task requires decision. Do it now or later. If later, when specifically. Each decision depletes willpower. With 2-minute rule, decision is eliminated. Task takes less than 2 minutes, therefore it gets done now. No deliberation. No deferred decision. No mental overhead carrying task forward through day. Immediate action or immediate dismissal with no middle ground of perpetual maybe later. The environmental trigger integration means pairing 2-minute rule with environmental cues, making execution automatic. When you notice dirty dish in sink, the 2-minute rule triggers immediate washing. When you receive email requiring brief response, the rule triggers immediate reply. Environmental cues combined with automatic 2-minute response create reliable execution system requiring no ongoing decision making or discipline. The combination transforms sporadic reactive behavior into systematic, reliable action. The implementation requires honestly evaluating whether a task genuinely requires 2 minutes or less of effort, and executing immediately if it does. Applying 2-minute starter version to larger intimidating tasks by defining genuinely achievable 2-minute beginning action. Starting 2-minute action without any commitment to continue beyond initial 2 minutes. Recognizing that permission to stop after 2 minutes paradoxically enables continuing. Trusting that starting creates momentum and motivation that were absent before beginning. Pairing rule with environmental triggers, creating automatic responses, and treating 2-minute rule as systematic initiation barrier elimination, where delayed starting created perpetual procrastination regardless of eventual task completion. 2 minutes eliminates initiation resistance. Start tiny, momentum follows. Begin now or delay forever. You understand now that immediate execution prevents accumulation, that 2-minute starter activates Zeigarnik effect, that minimal commitment eliminates resistance, that motion creates motivation, not vice versa, and that Chapter 2 provides initiation system making guaranteed starting possible, where initiation barrier created perpetual delay. Chapter 3. System 3. Implement time boxing for guaranteed focus. Chapter 3 implements time boxing as systematic framework, creating guaranteed focused work sessions that eliminate the open-ended procrastination opportunities that vague intentions enable. The time boxing definition shows that time boxing means dedicating specific predetermined time period with exact start time and exact end time to specific single task or category of work. That this bounded session with clear beginning and ending creates psychological commitment and urgency that open-ended work lacking defined endpoint never achieves. That knowing session will end at specific time creates sustainable intense focus impossible when facing indefinite undefined commitment to work until task completion, and understanding that time boxing transforms vague abstract intention to work on project sometime into concrete scheduled non-negotiable appointment with specific work, creating accountability that prevents procrastination. Time boxing creates bounded commitment. Schedule focus sessions. Box your time or waste it infinitely. The Parkinson's law application reveals core mechanism making time boxing effective anti-procrastination system. Parkinson's law states that work expands to fill the time available for its completion, meaning that allowing unlimited time for task virtually guarantees that task will consume unlimited time through unfocused, meandering procrastination and perfectionist endless refinement. Conversely, tight time constraint creates productive sense of urgency, focusing attention, and eliminating time-wasting tangents. Research consistently demonstrates that 25-minute intensely focused Pomodoro session produces more actual progress than multiple unfocused hours of supposed work that included constant interruptions, task switching, and procrastination. The session structure design requires establishing several specific parameters before beginning. First, determine session duration appropriate for task and current energy level, typically ranging from 25 minutes for demanding work requiring intense focus to 50 minutes for moderate difficulty work to 90 minutes maximum before mandatory break. Second, specify exact start time, creating appointment like commitment rather than vague sometime this afternoon intention. Third, define single specific task or narrow category of related task that session will address, eliminating the option to switch between multiple projects when one feels difficult. Fourth, commit to working on specified task exclusively throughout entire session, without checking email, browsing internet, or doing anything unrelated. The distraction elimination protocol executed before session begins dramatically increases session effectiveness. Silence phone and place it in different room, entirely eliminating most powerful distraction source. Close all browser tabs and applications unrelated to current task, removing digital temptation. Inform others you will be unavailable, creating social boundary protecting session. Clear physical workspace of clutter and distractions, creating focus supporting environment. Set timer for session duration, providing clear endpoint that enables sustained intensity. The preparation seems excessive, but distraction elimination makes fundamental difference between genuinely focused session and supposed work session constantly interrupted by checking notifications. The single task focus requirement means working exclusively on predetermined task throughout entire session, without task switching, multitasking, or allowing unrelated thoughts to derail focus. When urge arises to check email, switch to easier task, or research interesting tangent, the response is always the same. Return attention to session task. Note the distraction briefly in notebook if necessary to prevent forgetting, then immediately return to task. Single task focus feels constraining initially, but produces dramatically more progress than scattered attention across multiple tasks, none receiving adequate focus for meaningful advancement. The energy-based duration matching acknowledges that optimal session length varies based on task difficulty and current energy levels. High-energy morning periods can sustain 50 to 90-minute sessions on demanding cognitive work. Lower-energy afternoon periods may require shorter 25 to 30-minute sessions. Extremely depleted states might benefit from 15-minute sessions, maintaining some productivity rather than abandoning work entirely. Matching session length to realistic current capacity creates sustainable practice, rather than overly ambitious sessions that fail through unrealistic demands. The mandatory break requirement between sessions prevents the burnout that destroys sustainable practice. Attempting back-to-back time boxes without breaks leads to progressive degradation of focus quality. 5 to 10-minute break between 25-minute sessions allows brief mental recovery. Longer break after completing several sessions prevents cumulative fatigue. Break should involve genuine rest, including physical movement, hydration, or outdoor exposure, rather than switching to different screen-based activity that provides no actual recovery. The calendar scheduling integration transforms time boxing from occasional practice into systematic daily discipline. Block time boxes directly in calendar at consistent times, creating protected appointments with important work that cannot be casually displaced by meetings or reactive tasks. Morning time box for most important project. Afternoon time box for secondary priorities. Consistent scheduling creates automatic routine, reducing daily decision-making about when to work. The implementation requires deciding specific session duration based on task and energy, setting exact start time, creating appointment commitment, defining single specific task per session, eliminating all potential distractions before starting timer, maintaining single task focus throughout session, refusing all switching temptations, taking mandatory breaks between sessions, scheduling time boxes in calendar at consistent times, and treating time boxing as guaranteed focus system where open-ended work enabled infinite procrastination through lack of structure, deadline, or accountability. Time boxing creates bounded commitment. Schedule focus sessions. Box your time or waste it infinitely. You understand now that Parkinson's law makes constraints productive, that clear endpoints enable sustainable intensity, that distraction elimination is non-negotiable preparation, that single task focus produces disproportionate progress, and that Chapter 3 provides focus system, making guaranteed work sessions possible where unlimited time invited procrastination. Chapter 4. System 4. Create commitment devices for external accountability. Chapter 4 creates commitment devices that generate powerful external accountability, making procrastination genuinely costly rather than comfortably consequence-free. The commitment device definition shows that commitment devices are deliberate arrangements made by present self that restrict future self options, making procrastination difficult, expensive, or publicly visible. That external commitment overcomes the chronically weak internal commitment that procrastination exploits through temporary discomfort avoidance. That adding meaningful stakes, whether social, financial, or otherwise, creates motivation pressure completely absent when commitment remains private and consequence-free. And understanding that commitment devices systematically compensate for limited, unreliable willpower by creating external enforcement mechanisms that ensure action occurs regardless of fluctuating internal motivation. Commitment devices make procrastination costly, create external stakes, add consequences, or rely on failing willpower. The social commitment category leverages fundamental human motivation to maintain social reputation and avoid disappointing others. Public announcement of specific goal with specific deadline to friends, family, or social media creates witnesses whose awareness makes later abandonment visible rather than private. Accountability partner relationship where both people report progress to each other creates reciprocal checking that private solo commitment never maintains. Joining group or class creates scheduled collective accountability where your absence would be noticed. Each social commitment adds reputational stakes, making procrastination carry social cost rather than remaining invisible private struggle. The financial commitment category creates direct monetary consequences for procrastination, making delay literally expensive. Services like Beeminder and Stick enable formal commitment contracts where you deposit money that you forfeit if you fail to meet specific measurable commitments by defined deadlines. Making financial bet with friend where you pay specific amount if you fail to complete commitment by date adds similar monetary stake. Paying for class course or coaching creates sunk cost motivation to use paid resource rather than wasting money through non-attendance. Financial stakes work particularly powerfully for people motivated by money, creating concrete immediate cost for abstract future procrastination. The removal commitment category eliminates temptation, entirely removing procrastination options. Deleting social media applications from phone removes scrolling option during time meant for focused work. Using website blockers like Freedom or Cold Turkey to block distracting websites during work hours eliminates browsing option. Leaving phone in different room eliminates constant checking option. Canceling streaming services eliminates binge watching option. Each removal commitment reduces available procrastination alternatives, making desired action relatively more attractive by eliminating easier alternatives. The specificity requirement means commitment devices only work when commitment is concrete, specific, and measurable rather than vague and ambiguous. Committing to work on project creates no accountability. Committing to write 1,000 words daily by 10 a.m. or forfeit $20 creates clear accountability through specificity. The commitment must specify exact behavior, exact deadline, and exact consequence, leaving no room for rationalization or creative reinterpretation when motivation wanes. Vague commitments enable the excuse-making that procrastination requires to justify continued delay. The meaningful consequence calibration ensures that stakes are significant enough to motivate, but not so extreme that they create paralysis. $5 forfeit might feel trivial, creating insufficient motivation. $500 forfeit might feel so threatening that you avoid making commitment entirely. The consequence should feel genuinely uncomfortable, motivating compliance without being devastating if occasionally missed. The right calibration creates optimal tension between motivation to comply and realistic achievability. The consistency building progression acknowledges that commitment devices work best when built progressively rather than immediately jumping to extreme commitment, creating anxiety and avoidance. Begin with modest commitments and consequences. Daily writing commitment with accountability partner before adding financial stakes. Build consistency over weeks before increasing commitment intensity or adding additional layers. Progressive building creates sustainable practice rather than dramatic commitment that triggers resistance and abandonment. The strategic deployment principle means using commitment devices selectively for most important procrastinated priorities, rather than creating commitment fatigue through excessive commitments. Identify 1 to 3 highest priority procrastinated areas. Deploy commitment devices strategically, they're creating focused accountability. Maintain other areas through lighter systems. Strategic focus prevents the overwhelm that comes from attempting to transform everything simultaneously through intensive external accountability. The recovery protocol addresses inevitable occasional failures without abandoning entire commitment device system. Missing single commitment does not invalidate approach. Pay consequence without excessive self-criticism. Analyze what went wrong. Adjust commitment or consequence if needed. Resume immediately rather than allowing single failure to trigger complete abandonment. The ability to recover from setbacks without catastrophic demoralization determines long-term success with commitment devices. The implementation requires identifying highest priority procrastinated area, requiring external accountability, selecting appropriate commitment type, whether social, financial, or removal based on personal motivation, making commitment specific, measurable, and time-bound, eliminating ambiguity, calibrating consequence to be genuinely motivating without being paralyzing, starting with modest commitment, building consistency before intensifying, deploying strategically for most important areas rather than everywhere simultaneously, and treating commitment devices as external accountability multiplication, where internal commitment alone failed repeatedly under pressure. Commitment devices make procrastination costly, create external stakes, add consequences, or rely on failing willpower. You understand now that external commitment beats internal commitment, that specificity enables accountability, that meaningful stakes create motivation, that progressive building prevents overwhelm, and that Chapter 4 provides accountability system making follow-through reliable where solo commitment failed. Chapter 5. System 5 break tasks into tiny first steps. Chapter 5 breaks overwhelming procrastination, inducing tasks into tiny manageable first steps, systematically eliminating the overwhelm and ambiguity that create avoidance. The task breakdown principle shows that feeling overwhelmed by large, complex, or ambiguous tasks is the single most common procrastination trigger across all populations and contexts. That overwhelm creates paralysis where brain cannot identify a clear starting point, leading to complete avoidance. That breaking intimidating project into smallest possible concrete next action removes overwhelm, replacing paralyzing complexity with achievable clarity, and understanding that specificity systematically defeats procrastination, while vagueness and ambiguity systematically feed procrastination, making task decomposition essential anti-procrastination skill. Overwhelm creates procrastination. Define tiny first step. Start small or stay paralyzed by size. The next action clarity requirement means defining immediate concrete physical first action rather than vague project goal or abstract outcome. Write book is vague overwhelming project guaranteed to trigger procrastination. Open document and write single sentence describing main character is concrete achievable next action that eliminates ambiguity. Get organized is paralyzing ambiguous goal. Spend 5 minutes sorting desk papers into 3 labeled piles is specific executable action. Clean house creates overwhelm. Put 10 items from living room floor into proper locations is tiny achievable start. The difference between vague goals and concrete next actions determines whether task feels impossible or doable. The smallest viable action principle means making first step so ridiculously small that resistance feels absurd. When facing significant resistance, the solution is not trying harder, but making steps smaller. Cannot start writing. Make first step opening the document. Still feel resistance. Make first step putting hands on keyboard. The smaller the step, the less resistance it can generate. Eventually, step becomes so tiny that refusing feels more effortful than simply executing. The ego rebels against embarrassingly small steps, wanting to prove capability through ambitious action, but tiny steps consistently overcome procrastination, where ambitious intentions consistently fail. The momentum cascade effect reveals why tiny first steps produce disproportionate results beyond their modest scope. Completing tiny first step creates psychological momentum that makes second step significantly easier than first step was. Second step creates additional momentum, making third step easier still. What begins as forced effort for tiny action often naturally expands into sustained productive session because starting was the only genuine barrier. The task itself was not actually as aversive as anticipated. The anticipatory anxiety about task was worse than task reality. Tiny first step proves this by getting you into actual task experience rather than remaining in anxious avoidance. The planning fallacy awareness acknowledges that humans systematically underestimate how long tasks require while overestimating their future motivation and available time. This planning fallacy makes us defer starting because we believe we will have more time, motivation, and energy later, when reality proves we will not. Tiny first step approach bypasses planning fallacy by requiring action now regardless of optimistic future projections. Starting tiny now beats planning to start big later, because later often never arrives, while tiny action now creates actual progress. The ambiguity elimination function shows that vague tasks create procrastination, partially because brain cannot formulate concrete action plan for ambiguous instruction. Write report leaves countless unresolved questions about scope, structure, content, and approach, creating decision paralysis. Spend 10 minutes creating rough outline of 3 main report sections, eliminates ambiguity by defining concrete starting action. Breaking task into specific next action forces you to resolve ambiguity that vague task description allow to persist, creating procrastination. The project versus action distinction clarifies that procrastination occurs when calendar or task list contains projects masquerading as actions. Projects are outcomes requiring multiple steps. Actions are single completable steps. Exercise is project. Put on workout clothes and do 10 push-ups is action. Study for exam is project. Read pages 15 through 20 of textbook chapter 3 is action. Every project on your list should be immediately converted into concrete next action, or it will reliably trigger procrastination through its inherent ambiguity. The sequential revelation approach acknowledges that you do not need to break entire project into all steps simultaneously. Define only next action. Complete it. Then define subsequent next action. This sequential approach prevents the overwhelm that attempting to plan entire complex project creates. Each completed step reveals information, making next step clearer. Trust the process of sequential next action definition rather than demanding complete project plan before beginning. The context specification addition makes next actions even more concrete by specifying when and where action will occur. Right outline becomes right outline on Tuesday at 9 a.m. at desk. Adding temporal and spatial context transforms abstract action into scheduled appointment, making execution significantly more likely. Implementation intention research shows that specifying exact when and where doubles follow-through rates compared to vague intentions lacking contextual specificity. The implementation requires identifying tasks you consistently procrastinate, converting each vague project into concrete specific next physical action, making first step embarrassingly small, eliminating any possible overwhelm, completing tiny first step immediately, trusting momentum will follow, defining only immediate next action rather than planning entire projects simultaneously, adding when and where specifications, creating implementation intentions, and treating task breakdown as overwhelm elimination system, where large ambiguous tasks guaranteed procrastination through paralyzing complexity while tiny concrete actions enabled immediate execution. Overwhelm creates procrastination. Define tiny first step. Start small or stay paralyzed by size. You understand now that vagueness feeds procrastination while specificity defeats it, that smallest step eliminates resistance, that momentum builds from tiny starts, that planning fallacy makes deferring dangerous, and that Chapter 5 provides breakdown system making starting achievable where overwhelm created paralysis. Chapter 6. System 6 use temptation bundling to make action attractive. Chapter 6 uses temptation bundling, strategically pairing unpleasant procrastinated tasks with immediately enjoyable activities, creating positive association and immediate reward. The temptation bundling definition shows that bundling means deliberately pairing tasks you consistently procrastinate and should do but avoid with activity you genuinely want to do and find immediately enjoyable, creating package where desired activity only occurs during procrastinated task. That this pairing provides immediate gratification that overcomes the temporal discounting, making delayed task benefits feel abstract and unmotivating. That bundling systematically makes aversive task feel attractive rather than unpleasant by associating it with genuine pleasure, and understanding that temptation bundling rewires motivation through classical conditioning principles, making previously avoided tasks become cue for enjoyment. Bundle pleasure with procrastinated tasks. Create immediate rewards. Pair enjoyment or avoid forever. The immediate reward principle addresses core procrastination mechanism of temporal discounting, where brain overvalues immediate rewards while undervaluing delayed benefits. Completing difficult work project provides delayed abstract benefit of career advancement, feeling unmotivating compared to immediate concrete pleasure of watching entertaining video. Temptation bundling adds immediate reward by allowing yourself to watch favorite show only while working on project. Now, work provides both immediate pleasure through show and delayed career benefit. The immediate component overcomes temporal discounting that made procrastination feel more attractive than work. The implementation examples demonstrate practical bundling applications across common procrastination domains. Exercise procrastination responds to bundling favorite podcast or audiobook exclusively with workout, making workout become anticipated opportunity to enjoy content rather than dreaded obligation. Household task procrastination responds to bundling favorite music or show exclusively with cleaning, making cleaning feel less tedious. Tedious work task procrastination responds to bundling premium coffee or favorite snack exclusively with focused work session. Administrative task procrastination responds to bundling pleasant environment like coffee shop exclusively with completing administrative backlog. Each bundle pairs genuine enjoyment with genuine avoidance. The restriction requirement reveals why temptation bundling only works when enjoyable activity is genuinely restricted to paired task not available anytime. Listening to podcast while working only creates bundling benefit if you genuinely restrict podcast listening to workout time. If podcast is available anytime, bundling provides no motivation because you can get reward without doing avoided task. The restriction must be real and maintained consistently or bundling becomes meaningless. This restriction feels counterintuitive because it deliberately withholds pleasure, but restriction is precisely what creates motivation through making avoided task the gateway to desired reward. The pairing consistency builds automatic association through repetition, making task itself become cue for enjoyment. Initially, bundling feels deliberate and somewhat effortful. After weeks of consistent pairing, brain begins associating task with enjoyment automatically. Putting on workout clothes triggers anticipation of enjoying podcast. Sitting at desk triggers pleasant association with premium coffee and focused work. The classical conditioning creates automatic positive response to previously aversive task cue. Consistency in maintaining pairing and restriction is essential for this automatic association to develop. The enjoyment authenticity requirement means selected pairing activity must be genuinely enjoyable, not something you think should be enjoyable. If podcasts bore you, they will not work as bundling reward regardless of how intellectually edifying they are. The activity must create genuine immediate pleasure and genuine desire. Trying to bundle tasks with supposed reward you do not actually enjoy creates no motivation. Honest self-assessment of what you genuinely find immediately pleasant is essential for selecting effective bundling pairs. The task reward matching considers which rewards pair naturally with which procrastinated tasks based on attention requirements. Tasks requiring full cognitive attention cannot pair with content requiring attention, like podcasts or shows. These tasks might pair better with music or pleasant environment. Tasks that are physically active but not mentally demanding, like cleaning or exercising, pair well with mentally engaging audio content. Matching attention requirements prevents bundling from creating distraction that reduces task effectiveness. The guilt elimination aspect addresses common objection that combining pleasure with productivity feels wrong or lazy. Temptation bundling is sophisticated motivation engineering, not weakness. Using psychological principles to overcome procrastination demonstrates intelligence, not moral failing. If bundling enables you to consistently execute tasks you otherwise avoid, the bundling is unquestionably effective regardless of whether it feels appropriately serious or disciplined. Results matter more than whether approach matches conventional ideas about proper productivity. The progressive bundling expansion suggests starting with single high-priority procrastinated task and one restricted enjoyable activity, establishing the pairing consistently before expanding to additional bundles. Creating multiple bundles simultaneously risks diluting restriction, making no pairing feel genuinely exclusive. Begin with most problematic procrastination and most desired reward. Perfect that bundle over weeks. Then consider adding additional bundles for other procrastinated tasks only after first bundle operates automatically. The implementation requires identifying your most consistently procrastinated task, selecting genuinely enjoyable activity you find immediately rewarding, restricting that enjoyment exclusively to procrastinated task performance without any exceptions, maintaining pairing and restriction consistently over weeks, allowing automatic association to develop, ensuring task and reward match in attention requirements, starting with single bundle before expanding to multiple bundles, and treating temptation bundling as motivation engineering, making procrastinated tasks feel attractive where unappealing tasks remain perpetually avoided despite importance. Bundle pleasure with procrastinated tasks. Create immediate rewards. Pair enjoyment or avoid forever. You understand now that immediate reward overcomes temporal discounting, that restriction makes task gateway to pleasure, that consistency builds automatic positive association, that authenticity matters more than supposed virtue, and that Chapter 6 provides motivation system, making avoided tasks attractive where aversion created delay. Chapter 7. System 7 Design Environment for Automatic Action. Chapter 7 designs physical and digital environment, creating automatic action by making desired behavior the path of least resistance. The environment power shows that environment shapes behavior more powerfully than willpower, motivation, or conscious intention. That behavior consistently follows the path of least resistance within any environment, regardless of stated goals or values. That strategic environment design, making desired action easier than procrastinating alternatives, ensures desired action wins through simple friction differential without requiring ongoing discipline, and understanding that environmental design removes the ongoing decision-making and willpower expenditure where procrastination typically occurs, making environment optimization the highest leverage anti-procrastination intervention available. Environment determines behavior more than willpower. Design for action. Optimize environment or fight losing battle. The friction manipulation principle provides core mechanism for environmental influence on behavior, reducing friction for desired actions through preparation, proximity, and removal of barriers makes those actions easy default, requiring minimal activation energy. Increasing friction for procrastinating alternatives through removal distance and added barriers makes those alternatives require significant deliberate effort. When desired action requires less friction than procrastination, desired action wins automatically without conscious discipline. Environment creates this friction differential, determining which behaviors occur naturally. The preparation reduces friction by completing setup steps in advance, eliminating barriers between decision and execution. Workout clothes prepared and placed bedside the night before eliminates morning friction of finding and selecting clothes, reducing workout initiation barrier. Healthy meals prepared Sunday and stored ready to eat eliminates weeknight friction of deciding and preparing food, reducing fast food temptation. Work materials organized on clear desk before leaving office eliminates morning friction of gathering scattered resources, reducing distracted startup. Each preparation investment pays dividends through reduced future friction, enabling automatic execution. The proximity principle shows that physical distance creates friction, making near items used frequently while distant items remain forgotten. Placing guitar in living room where you see it daily dramatically increases playing frequency compared to guitar stored in closet. Moving healthy snacks to eye-level front of refrigerator increases consumption compared to hidden in drawer. Placing important book on nightstand increases reading compared to book buried in shelf. Strategic item placement based on desired usage frequency creates automatic behavior through environmental prompting and reduced access friction. The removal strategy eliminates procrastination alternatives, entirely removing temptation from environment. Deleting social media applications from phone removes scrolling option during moments of boredom or avoidance. Removing television from bedroom eliminates late night viewing option interfering with sleep. Canceling streaming services eliminates binge watching option consuming time meant for priorities. Not keeping tempting junk food in-house eliminates eating option requiring no ongoing resistance. Each removal permanently eliminates decisions and resistance that unchanged environment would require indefinitely. The visual cue placement creates environmental prompts, automatically triggering desired behaviors without conscious memory. Placing water bottle on desk creates drinking cue. Placing running shoes by door creates exercise reminder. Placing book on pillow creates reading prompt at bedtime. Placing project materials in visible location creates work reminder. Visual cues work because they intercept attention, automatically requiring no memory or planning to trigger action. The CUD behavior becomes environmental response rather than planned intention. The digital environment optimization applies same principles to screen-based environment that consumes increasing proportion of daily time and attention. Website blockers like Freedom or Cold Turkey blocking distracting sites during work hours eliminates browsing option. Removing email and social media from phone home screen increases friction for checking. Turning off all non-essential notifications eliminates constant interruption, creating focus, supporting digital environment. Using apps like Forest that punish phone use during focus sessions adds friction to distraction. Digital environment shapes behavior as powerfully as physical environment, requiring equal design attention. The workspace design creates physical location optimized exclusively for focused productive work, eliminating associations with leisure or distraction. Dedicated workspace used only for work builds strong environmental association between location and productive behavior. Maintaining completely clear desk eliminates visual distraction and decision-making about what to work on. Removing comfort items like recliners from workspace maintains work-appropriate arousal level. Optimizing lighting temperature and ergonomics reduces physical discomfort that triggers avoidance. Purpose-designed workspace creates environmental context that automatically shifts mental state toward focus. The default option design makes desired choice the automatic path occurring without active selection. Automatic retirement contributions make saving default, requiring active choice to spend. Meal delivery service makes healthy eating default, removing grocery shopping and preparation friction. Standing desk makes standing default posture. Each default option design harnesses power of inertia, making beneficial choice require no action, while harmful choice requires deliberate active override. The accountability through visibility makes important commitments and progress publicly visible, creating social environmental pressure. Visible calendar showing scheduled work blocks creates social accountability if others can see schedule. Progress tracking visible on wall creates environmental reminder and motivation. Public commitment posted where others see creates reputational environmental state. Visibility converts private struggle into public accountability through environmental design. The implementation requires analyzing current physical and digital environment, identifying procrastination enablers, preparing materials and setup for desired actions in advance, eliminating friction, placing important items and cues in highly visible prominent locations, removing procrastination alternatives from environment entirely where possible, blocking distracting websites and removing tempting apps during focus time. Designing dedicated workspace exclusively for focused productive work. Creating default options, making desired behaviors automatic path of least resistance, making commitments and progress visible, creating environmental accountability, and treating environment as behavior programming infrastructure where unchanged environment guaranteed continued procrastination through making procrastination the path of least resistance. You have learned 7 systems for stopping procrastination forever. System 1: Understanding procrastination psychology. System 2: Using 2-minute rule. System 3: Implementing time boxing. System 4: Creating commitment devices. System 5: Breaking tasks into tiny steps. System 6: Using temptation bundling. System 7: Designing environment for action. What matters now is implementing one system today. 5 immediate priorities. Execute one 2-minute task immediately without delay. Schedule one 25-minute time box for tomorrow. Create one commitment device with real consequences. Define tiny first step for one procrastinated task. Identify one temptation to bundle with avoided work. Start immediately. Systematize consistently. Eliminate procrastination permanently. Stop delaying what matters and start systematic guaranteed action. Stop guilt cycles and start reliable execution. Implement 7 systems consistently. Address emotion regulation. And stop procrastinating forever through unwavering systematic commitment starting right now today.